Hi everyone, my name is Nimisha Balgopal and I'm a senior product manager at Twitch. Previously, I was a global product manager at HP, and before that, I was a product manager at CR Bard, which is now part of BD. So today, I'm going to talk about how to effectively collaborate as a product manager. This is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about because it's just really crucial to be collaborative with your team and engage the team, and it really helps you build successful products. It makes you really prioritize your customer, which is what product is all about. So why is collaboration important? So really, product managers who aren't able to build relationships with their team and get honest feedback and opinions inevitably build a product that really doesn't have their customer in mind. So you need the buy-in of your entire team for them to be excited to build a product and to really think that you're making an impact to your customer. So here I have a scale of what I call collaboration. You can be on either end of the spectrum. So you can either have a lack of opinion, which is when you're so collaborative that you ask everyone for their opinion and you just really want to know what everyone thinks. And there's really nothing wrong with that, but that also leads to you not having your own opinion. So you have to be able to still stand your ground and understand what your own opinion is. And it's difficult to lead a team and give insight and input to a team when you don't have an opinion of your own, when it seems like you're using the opinions of others to really drive your own opinion. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have being very single-minded, which is where you think your opinion is the only way to go, and you really don't take in any of the insight that your peers are giving you, or you just don't even ask for it. You don't really care. And that is when you're not really thinking about your customer anymore, because there are multiple ways to build a product, and that doesn't mean your way is the only way to do it. So you have to be really in the sweet spot right here, which is marked by this green arrow, where you're able to have a very strong opinion. You want to be able to say, this is what I've learned, these are the thoughts I have, what does everyone else think, and then be open to feedback so that people feel comfortable talking to you. You don't want to be the product manager that sits in a room without an opinion and just hopes to form an opinion as you're listening to others talk to you. So I'm going to talk through how you find the right balance of collaboration with your partners and your peers when you're working on any product. And it really comes down to two things. It comes down to trust, and that is trust with your partners, with anyone you're working with, and they need to be able to trust that you know your customer, which leads into the second point. Everything you do has to lead back to your customer. It's what your goal is. It is to make sure that your customer has the best solution possible. So first thing I want to talk about is partnerships and, like I said, trust. And I really tried to break these slides up into two sections, so trust and customers, but it was really difficult because they're so intertwined. You can't do one without the other to build a successful product. So when it comes to trust, you want your engineering team to trust you. You want your designers to trust you. You want product managers on other teams to trust you. And of course, you want your managers to trust that you know your customer. And the way they trust you is by always talking about your customer. As a PM, you don't really have the power to tell people what to do. You're the CEO of your product, but you don't really have any authority to tell people what to do, which is why buy-in is so critical. But you don't really get buy-in unless the people you're working with trust that you know what is right for your product and for your customer. So a couple of ways I've tackled this is by making sure engineering and design is involved as early as possible. So this means getting them involved when you even have an idea, because then you can gather their insights and they feel like they're valued on the team. And getting to know your team's working styles. So sitting down and understanding, okay, do you work better with a timeline? Do you work better if we have bi-weekly check-ins? What is your style? What are your expectations? And setting that very, very clearly from the get-go so that people aren't surprised and they kind of know what is going on. And really, if there's no trust between yourself or with any of your counterparts, you're in trouble from the very beginning because no one is really motivated or excited to build a product because they don't really know what's going on. So the next thing, which I've mentioned multiple times, is that you need to know your customers. This is so crucial because everything you do has to come back to your customer. You want to be, as a PM, you want to be the voice of your customer. You need to be able to talk like your customer. You need to be able to empathize with your customer. And you need to be able to know what their main pain points are so that you can improve their lives. And the best way to do that is by going through the flow yourself. So if you're trying to fix an app and you're deciding, okay, I need to build a tool to optimize their experience. Well, what's the problem? How do you learn what their problem is? You have to put yourself in their shoes and go through these steps. The next crucial part is really having your own opinion. I mentioned a product manager who really is single-minded and is very aggressive about their opinion, and another type of product manager who is just so collaborative that they don't have their own opinion. But you want to be able to have your own opinion. When you're learning about your customer, it is your job to constantly learn about them and always figure out what their new problem is. So you should be able to have quantitative and qualitative data that tells you what is the next thing I need to solve. And that is what you can really ground your opinion in so that you can actually talk to the rest of your team about it. And if your opinion is incorrect or they believe it is, that's when you need to be open to feedback. You really need your team to feel like they can give you positive insight and you can have a real discussion about what you think is right for the customer. And if you really, really think that what your opinion, your strategy is the right approach, then you need to go back to your customer. Because when you're thinking about your customer, it is easier to discuss opinions and it's easier to attain buy-in from all your stakeholders because in the end, like I said, it's about building something really successful for your customer. So next, I want to talk a little bit more about how to have difficult conversations. So no matter what, people are going to have opinions. They want their voices to be heard, and that is completely valid. And it is your job as a product manager, in my opinion, to hear everyone out, to be able to understand what other people are thinking and why they think that way. Because they might give you insight that you never had before, that you wouldn't have even thought of, that could change the direction of your product. But being very single-minded doesn't really allow you to be open to any other type of options. It's really hard to pivot when you don't have all the information. But it's better to pivot knowing the right information than move forward on an incorrect path. So there's multiple ways to have these difficult conversations. Usually the first approach I take is just talking about the customer, understanding why this other person has these certain opinions. And if that doesn't work, you can go and talk to customers. You can do a lot of research and understand their problems. Maybe that'll help answer your situation. And if that still doesn't work, you can run an experiment. There's different ways to handle difficult conversations, but the wrong approach is to be very, very, to lash back is what I would say. You don't want to be very adamant in what your thoughts are. You want to be open and perceptive to what everyone has to say. And it is so important to set expectations when you're kicking off any type of product, when you are working with your stakeholders, even when you're not working on a product, but you're with your entire team. You want them to understand what your expectations are when you build a product and what they might think is not an accurate expectation. So if you want to ship a product in 2 months and they say, no, that's actually going to take 3 months, that is something you want to push back on, sure, but if it's really impossible, that expectation needs to be set up front with the entire team so that there's no surprises along the way. It's better to have everything out and understood and timeline set, expectation set, instead of going halfway through development and then realizing we missed something because all of our expectations were misaligned. And if you find out that there's a team member that has misaligned expectations, it is your job to make sure everyone gets back on the same page. And that kind of leads me to my next point. When there are blockers on your team, the best way to gain trust and just make sure things keep moving forward is by unblocking them for your team. I always tell the people I work with that one of my jobs is to make sure that they can keep building what they want to build, because it is not their responsibility to go take care of blockers or any issues that they're facing that they don't really have direct control over. And if your team members like to handle like those kind of problems, if they really want to be able to manage blockers on their own, that is totally okay. But they should also realize that you are always available to sit in those conversations and have those insights so that you're on the same side, you're on the same team, and you're there to support each other. There's not one person really directing how things need to get done. It's a partnership. So making sure that your team knows you're there for them no matter what the problem is. If you need to roll up your sleeves and do something, that is really how your entire team can trust that you're going to support them the entire time. And really, I think everyone loves getting credit. They love knowing that they've made a contribution. So if someone on the team has given you an insight, they've helped you brainstorm, they've thought up of a new experiment, it is so valuable to recognize that person when your product is successful, because you may not have had, like I said before, you may not have had those insights without that person, and they gave you time and you built the product together as a team. It wasn't just one person building a product. A product can't be built by a single person just trying to do something. It takes a team. And it really shows that you value their contribution. And what I think is really exciting is that you kind of start building this relationship with the team. But when something goes wrong, you don't, point out that someone messed up, right? You don't really scapegoat someone. But if it was your fault as a PM, you need to own up to that. So if you miscalculated something, just say it was a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. And a product manager who doesn't make mistakes, I don't believe that exists. So really, if you make a mistake, own up to it and take responsibility for it, because that's also another way for your team to know that they can trust you, that you are there for them and you're going to be there to support them. So if it really comes down to anything, the takeaways I want people to have from this conversation is that being collaborative really helps you understand your customer. It helps everyone who's working on the product understand your customer, and they get excited to build the product. It takes a whole team to really make the best decision, and any micro decision can make a huge difference when you're building a product. So you need to have a very comfortable environment so that people can have suggestions. Think about when you're sitting down with another team, when you're sitting down with your managers, you want them to feel like you can talk to them. You want to be able to voice your opinions. You want to be able to push for what you believe is right for the customer. And that is the same feeling that all your other teammates should have when they're working with you on a product. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to all of you about collaboration and just how exciting it is to me, and tips on how to become more collaborative and effective at it. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, this is my contact information. Thank you.